Welcome to our show, The Awakening. So hello and welcome, and we're here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experiences. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. My name's Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach specialist and restorative family mediator. I'm remote today. If you can't tell, things are a little bit different here, and Joe's on his own little part. So Joe is here, and we're graced again with this wonderful guest, Chrystal Meach. And today's show has a bit of drama that's in it. And so we're going to kind of talk some of this over, and then Chrystal is going to kind of explain a little bit about this. So our show topic today is don't let fear hold you back from getting intimate. There's lots of kinds of fear that goes on, especially after you leave a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship. And so the things that I get a lot of times is people asking me, how do you do what you do? Aren't you afraid of people attacking you? So that's where this topic came from. Chrystal and I got to talking after her last episode, and she had some great clicks on her video. So we asked Chrystal to come back so that we could talk about this topic. And it hasn't really been that long since we had Chrystal on, but there's been lots of craziness that's gone on since then. So because of that, that's why I said we're talking about the fear. And I have new coaches because I mentor at my school, and I have new coaches that are asking me all the time, so aren't you afraid of this? I mean, how can you get on and do a podcast? And how come you can say these things in your posts? Aren't you afraid that somebody's going to come get you? And so my ex he's not a toxic aspect of that. And so I don't have that fear, but Joe has a little bit different stuff. And then I know, Chrystal, that you had an episode that happened shortly after our last communication that involved some toxic aspect from your past. And so we've got a little bit of that going on. So we had this week alone, we had an issue with Joe's toxic fan club. So Joe's nicknamed his ex Hilda. So he had some issues that came up involving his son-in-law, and his son-in-law called one of our guest speakers and left a voicemail. And he spoke very wonderful. I've got the voicemail. He did a great job in communicating what he was communicating, but he asked a guest to look deeper into Joe because Joe wasn't telling the whole story. So this is important for people to understand. Our guest speakers don't do any aspect to other than come on and help our guests, are the people that are watching us. They help you understand things. And Chrystal today is going to actually help us go through how to handle that fear, because when we have so much fear, we can't have a relationship, no less an intimate relationship. So Chrystal has some information that she can share with us. But we had a bunch of stuff that, like I said, that went on. And so our guest speaker kept the voicemail, and we gave her the name of the young man that actually called her and the location where he lives. And so that if something would happen, she could turn that into the police. I do have the voicemail, and Joe had to share that with one of the officers that he works with so that he could get some advice there. So it's just a matter of going through all of these things. So in talking about all of this, I have a question here for you, Joe. So I'm okay, and I have had some of my clients' exes bark back at me through an email. And of course, that's just stuff that's unimportant to me. What we call in our line of work in coaching is that's gray rocking it. So I just delete those emails and let them go. So Joe, in this case, this is an attack from your family. And so how can you still be doing this? Aren't you afraid?
So absolutely I'm not afraid. To give into fear, you're letting the other people control part of your life. And I'm not into that kind of thing. So, and I don't have anything to be fearful of because I experienced what I experienced. So I'm just telling the story from my perspective, what happened to me. And I know the person that called in and they had a concern that I was telling a one-sided story. Well, there was 6 little kids in the house too. I don't have that perspective to tell their side of the story. So to make that statement, yeah, it's absolutely true. I'm telling my story, not my kid's story, not my ex's story. It's definitely my story. So I lived it, I experienced it, and I'll share it.
Yeah. So then, Chrystal, I know that you have your own story of the stuff and the toxic background of your life. And so my big question for you is, how can somebody get over this kind of fear so that they can move on and have a healthy, intimate relationship?
Well, I think it really starts with you and realizing that you have the control over yourself and not others. So how you react to someone, their criticism, whatever they're trying to pull, come back to yourself. How are you going to react to that? And for me, when I first got out of a toxic relationship, I had PTSD. So I always shut down. So I worked with a therapist for a long time doing EMDR therapy in order to not shut down because I was shutting down my whole life. And so as I realized, oh, this is a trauma response. So once you become conscious of how you're responding, that really helps you move forward. And I'll just say that the reason that I'm on the show, just like you two, is, it's a bigger purpose to say, hey, there's people that really need us that aren't safe, and they need to know that they can get out.
Yes. And, when you were talking about the trauma, I can remember the trauma from my relationship. Now, most of my trauma came from just being pounded by the conversations that I would have all the time with my ex. But once I left, that stopped completely. And it did take me time. I worked with a therapist also to get out of that. And it took me a while. It took me several years before I could say that my broken hand wasn't my fault. The gaslighting that goes on. And of course, they can't own what they did. So they gaslight you. And I get it.
Yeah. And you're breaking that cycle by being able to get out. And then as you get more into the safe space, the more you can work on you, because the more you work on you, the better your chances of getting out of those toxic situations, and then also how to deal with them in an appropriate manner. Like Joe realized, hey, this isn't okay, but I don't have to be silenced by this incident.
Right.
And that's huge.
That's what they want, is silence. They want you to be quiet and quit spreading your point of view, what happened to you, to them, it's not fair, but it's my life that I'm explaining and telling about to, like you mentioned, to help other people. And I'm not doing this just for my benefit. In fact, mostly it's for other people, that there's a way out, and take that door out and help yourself. Don't stay in that environment, because mine would have never got better. It got worse. So that's what I want for other people, is to get out, get safe.
Yeah. And you may even realize, like for me, I was scared to stay because of my daughter. And I was like, how will she be protected if I leave? And so that was a huge deal for me to leave. But I had to have faith that as I kept working on me, then she got out and she was safe. And now she's really safe. I mean, and she is protected. So the more you can work on you, because you have the most control over you, the better your chances of getting out into a safer environment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Can I add just a little bit? And you mentioned about your daughter's safety. See, I had 6 little kids, and I needed to be there in the toxic. That's how I felt, that if I left, I felt the courts were going to give her the kids. I've got the job. And I had back then a lot of fear. So I stayed in the relationship for all those years till the cops were called like 3 different times on me, because she said I was abusing her, which I was not. And the cops never believed her, because I never got arrested. So I did stay a long, long time, years and years and years. And 4 of the kids were out of the nest. The other 2 were, the last 2 were not. They were like 17 right in there. And, but I couldn't stay anymore. I couldn't be that buffer zone. And so, and I felt like I couldn't leave just because I thought she was going to get the kids, which there's a good chance that she could have got the kids, so. But anyways, I did what I could do. My kids are all healthy, sound-minded right now, thank God. So, and I know there would be some things I'd do different looking back, but when you're in the storm, there's a lot going on. And, I had counselors and that kind of stuff at that time. So, but anyways, that was just my experience.
Yeah. And I give you a lot of credit. 6 kids, and to really be able to get out is alive.
Alive, right.
You're just, that's amazing amount of courage and strength. And the support you probably had to pull in to
Right.
go through that is amazing. And it's what people need to hear, is that there is a way out. And, even if it's you putting the oxygen mask on first. Sometimes.
Right. And I had evidence in my hand at the time of recordings that my contractor did at the time, because we were going through a remodel. And the kids, and I was at work, and the kids were screaming, and there was a lot going on, and it was horrible sounding. I could only listen to the small fraction of the tape, and I had to shut it off. And I had that in my hands. And at that time, I didn't take it to the police. I didn't take it to the school. I had a lot of fear in it, and it controlled that situation. And yes, I'd do it differently now. I would take that recording to the police, to the school, wherever I needed to go, hand it over. And out there, I know there's still some recordings of that episode. So yeah, I'd do it way different, because I felt powerless back then. I was so brainwashed that there wasn't anything left. It was like, oh no, protect the family unit at all costs. and that's what I did, that I would have done it different now.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, the fact that you got out, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't.
Right. I got out. My kids are all good, safe. They have great significant others, and that kind of stuff. So I'm very happy and proud of them.
And they have a dad. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
such a huge, huge accomplishment. Like to have that relationship. And there's so many, so many people just like you that
Right.
Yeah.
love you. And your support for it.
Yes. And so I think the thing that all three of us have in common, which is something very important for the viewers, is that we all sought therapy. And I think that's huge. And so you coming out of your therapy, Chrystal, I bet it was very difficult, if not impossible at first, to even think about an intimate relationship.
Oh, for sure. And I was scared that I would repeat the pattern, that I would go back to and find another narcissist. And that's not true, to have that belief that every man is bad or that you can't have a good relationship. And I think both of you are a testament to that. I mean, you've both found each other. But yeah, it's so rewarding to move on from your trauma and have an intimate relationship and be able to, have someone that listens to you or that can just where you can let your walls down and really trust someone.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that working with a therapist, because it's about you, it's not about the other person. You don't go to therapy to deal with the other person. You go to therapy to figure out how you can let the other person go and better yourself so that you can come into the healthy relationship that Joe and I have. And you have a healthy relationship now too.
Yeah. So it was like right after. So when I was working, and it was shortly after I went through divorce, like went through divorce, that I met someone, and it was at first a friendship. And because he had also went through a terrible divorce, we both kind of came together, kind of similar to you two. And we were both able to share our story, and it just kept growing from that point. And I think, I wish that for a lot of the listeners that are scared to, maybe meet someone, or there's different, you can talk to different therapists because they can talk to you about maybe not dating your type. And I know Allison Armstrong, who I'm a huge endorser of, her work is all about not dating your type. And as you don't date your type, your walls come down because you're not looking to please that other person. So that kind of helps. So that's maybe a tip for our listeners, is maybe you start out by just being friends and also not dating your type.
Yeah. I have a client that she's wanting to date, and she hasn't dated since she was in high school. And so her ex-husband was her first, and that's it. So she doesn't know how to date. And so my advice to her was, don't go on a date. Go on your meeting, meet this person, get to know them, talk about your interests, what they like, maybe have a second meeting and learn a little bit more about them. And then maybe go on what might look like a date.
Yeah. And for like that, I would say you also have to understand what your needs are. in the relationship. So in the beginning, you might not even know what you need. So it's really important to go slow, I would say.
Yeah. I had the therapy early on after my divorce. And then about when I turned 50, just before I met Joe, I got into a woman's circle, and the topics were open, and the people that led it opened it with sex. Those were the kinds of conversations these women started with. And I was able to let down and hear some truth and speak some truth and learn about other people's relationships. I was just blown away that there was a world of people out there I never knew existed.
Yeah, and it was probably topics that you've never discussed before.
Oh yeah, never. Crazy. I mean, in our last, you talked about the barbed wire, the last show that you were on. And so anal sex became a conversation that we had last time. And in that group of women, I was okay talking about that. I was raised on a farm, and I was practically raised by my vet, where we just talked about that like it was lunch kind of thing, And so to hear other people be able to safely speak about those kinds of things, vibrators, and those were okay for me to goof around with conversationally with my close knit, but this was a group of people I had never really met. It was just such it was freeing. That's about the best word I can say.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also, like we talked about religion last time, sometimes because of religion, you don't necessarily want to speak about all that.
Right.
Yeah, anytime you can find the support group where you can be open and learn from other people and really put yourself out there, then the more you're going to realize, number one, your fears, and two, your beliefs, and then three, what are your needs? Because that's, as you come into if you want another relationship, that's really what you need to be conscious of. And if you're conscious, you can come into that relationship and talk about it. And that helps because the other person isn't going to run into a barbed wire fence, as I like to call it.
Yeah. So, Joe, I know that you talk about going to work out. So how did you get past that? You saw counselors early, but what was that opened you up to realize that there might be a way for you to have the kind of relationship that you and I have?
Wow. Well, it wasn't planned, and I think God opened those doors for Tina and I to be together, because I know, Chrystal, you mentioned about taking it slow and stuff. Tina and I, we hit that gate and blew the gate down and running around the track, and we've hit that go button every day. It's just like we just live life, and so I think we're the in exception. It's just like there was no rules. We just trusted each other really from the start. We had a connection on the first date, and we just laughed and laughed and laughed, and we had such a great time, and it was just a natural thing. So that's all I can say, is just natural.
Yeah, and wow, how beautiful is that? After all that both of you went through, that you finally find that release.
Yeah.
I think God said, well, let me pick this one for you.
Yeah, I was just actually telling the story of how we met. The day that we were supposed to have our date, I was at work and I wasn't feeling very well. So I went home and I fell asleep. And as I woke up, I saw these blue eyes just kind of pass in front of me. Well, through all of that, I wasn't going to go. I didn't think he was going to go anyways. We finally met up that night, early evening, and I'm texting him to find him, but he sees me walking. And so he runs over and he had sunglasses on and he almost hits me in the face with his sunglasses. And those blue eyes were right there. And then we went up, had a couple of drinks and decided we were going to go to dinner. And Joe can tell this part where I was walking down and he put his hand.
Right. First time I touched her was out in the parking lot, and I put my arm around her and gave her a kiss. And I just felt that connection, that it was just a connection, and it's like, wow, I've never felt that before. And and then she trusts me enough to get in the truck, my truck, and I opened the door and I go, get in the truck. And
I thought it was so
laughed.
cute.
She laughed, and I thought, okay, we're off to a good start. I'm not dead yet. So, and the whole night we just laughed and laughed at the dinner table at what was it? The steakhouse.
It was Roadhouse. So
yeah,
we sat next to each other on the little tiny seats, and there was this older couple, and he had dropped some mashed potatoes or something on his lap, and I jokingly said, well, I'll just eat it off. So I stuck my head down and then picked it up and put it in my mouth. But the old couple, I thought they were going to have a heart attack. It was so funny. We laughed about that for hours afterwards.
Yep, that's how our date went. It was just whatever we felt like saying, doing, we just did it. And that's how our relationship is today. It's
the whole time.
It's all about trust, and
So Chrystal, when you went on your first dating episodes afterwards, how did that go for you?
It was, I was just kind of okay with it. I didn't really meet anyone that I was crazy about other than this guy at work that, like he was kind of shy, and he was an executive and I was a manager. So it was a little, we were kind of like flirting behind the scenes and trying not
the fun stuff.
Yeah, to get other people to notice what we were doing. But yeah, I did date, and it was just okay. Like, it wasn't anyone that I had a connection, like you two said, like I had with this guy at work. And so when we did finally get together, it was like a hot affair. I would say that. Like,
so awesome. You were able to have a close, intimate relationship there. So
yeah, and it did start, I would say, well, we knew each other for a while, but then when I left the company, then it happened, where it was just like, we just let it all hang out. And, and then it was an insane amount of sex. Like, you just want to get more, because it feels so good, and to be with someone that you can trust. And if you've never had it before like that, then it's amazing. Like,
right. Yeah. And that is definitely the way Joe is. After I had met with this girls club, where we just sat, it was like an Indian talking stick circle. And so after that, I was like, wow, there's more than what I know. And so this is the tattletaling on me. So that night that Joe and I had our first date, I left him after several hours of us talking in the parking lot. And I went home, which is about 30 minutes away. And I just crawled into bed, and he texted, "Did you make it home okay?" And I said, "Yep." And he goes, well, I wish I was still with you. And I jokingly text back, well, you could be. And he said, what's your address? So he literally came over that night, and no joke, Chrystal, he's never left. He's been with me ever since.
True story. Yeah, you can't make that stuff up.
No, and it's, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, all I can say is just keep going. Like, the
Right.
world needs
And
more.
I'm not telling the viewers out there to do that. That's like,
yeah, no, that's
that's
probably
what's
not
a blue
safe.
moon. Yeah, so don't idolize that or whatever you're gonna do. Don't think that's in the handbook. There's no handbook for that. So
Yeah,
So,
there isn't.
yeah,
There's, I mean, you just have to go with your gut. I mean, you're
right.
gonna know
Yeah.
it's not right.
Yeah.
right,
There you
right. And you know the part where you talk and teach that don't date your type? Well, Joe wasn't my type. I mean, his picture on the silly match had him with a dead moose. My dad was a huge hunter, and I totally did not want to date my dad. So I avoided all the men that were similar to my dad. I mean, parts and pieces might have been, but I avoided them. And voila, I dated somebody like my dad.
Go figure.
So yeah, I didn't date my type, I guess. I didn't even know I had a type.
All the better, because then, I mean, you're coming into it fresh and just, whatever happens, happens. You're in the moment. You're
Right.
not
Right.
based on past or, trauma or any of that.
Yeah. So Chrystal, I know we talked about this last time, but I want you to go ahead and kind of tell us some more about your program and how you work.
So it's a 12-week program, and it's basically walking you through your mindset. And it's called Transformation to Queen. It's mostly for women. I do have men that have asked to be in the program, but what's hard for me is that I'm not a man, so I can't really speak as a man. I mean, I can talk about women, but I don't have that perspective.
Right, right.
So I definitely love to work with women because I do have that perspective, even though my experience is relative. But yeah, it's all about mindset. So you're walking through how you respond to situations. And we talk very basically about what you think about men. So you'll go through exercises every week, and you'll start thinking, oh, well, I saw this man at the grocery store and I thought, this. And so then you start to see how you see the world, but then that comes back to the inner world and how you see yourself, and as a reflection of that. So we're moving through and releasing some of those, I'd say some of the ways that women disempower themselves. And the whole point is to be able to be conscious. And then from that point, you're able to recognize and then have a different response.
Awesome. Awesome. That I can just see how that can help, because working in a group like that, having the homework just kind of helps them get comfortable, and they talk about that, and they just grow from all of that. So I can see how that can work. So where do people go? I know there she is. She has it up there for us. So this is Chrystal's contact information. So go ahead.
Yeah, you can contact me through Gmail, or you can go to my website, Chrystal WH System. I just have a simple website. Most people email me, or they'll go on Alignable. I get a lot of people through Alignable. But yeah, just email me and I'll respond and we'll make it work. whatever you're interested in. I don't have a group program right now, but I do have like one-on-one intensives.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So awesome. So do you have any last minute advice that you want to give our viewers?
I just want to say, the more you work on you, the more your situation changes, and it changes for the better. And I mean, both of you are a testament to that. So cheers to you.
Thank
And
you.
to our audience for listening today. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have an intimate relationship, and it's needed. It's so needed.
We
And
need it.
yeah, you should not go without.
So true. So, Joe, do you have any last minute advice for our viewers?
Well, I like what Chrystal said about working on yourself. And little did I know it at the time when I was in the other marriage, but I was doing really 17 years of counseling as marriage counseling. I felt like it really benefited me so much just to get that kind of therapy and reach out and be humble about it. And don't hide. It helped me release quite a bit. And I thought I was working for that marriage, which I thought it was at the time, but in my opinion and what I experienced, that was fruitless 100%, but what wasn't fruitless is getting the help, the counseling. So you can take that with you out of the marriage. So that helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful.
Very good. So I can tell the viewers that I'm a divorce coach, and my job is to help you through all of this. And I can save you money and a lot of time, but most of all, especially like what we're talking here, I can save you a lot of stress, unneeded stress that you don't need to go through. I help you understand the communication from the courts, from your lawyer, and how to communicate to the courts and to your lawyer and to your soon-to-be ex, or in Joe's case or your case, the ex that you're co-parenting with. And so you can reach me. My information is right here, CoachTinaLynn@gmail.com, and my website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. And if you would like to talk to Joe, you can reach him through that, and I'll give him the information, and then he can contact you directly. But our hope is, especially where we're talking about this fear, is that you can overcome this fear, as Joe's demonstrated, as Chrystal's demonstrated, and as I've demonstrated. And you can find this happy, wonderful life like Chrystal has and Joe and I have. It's there waiting for you, but you have to make the choice to reach out and ask for that help. And so I always finish with this. But if you are in a serious violent situation right here, right now, here in the United States, call 911 and get the police there. And as Joe often says, when you want to press charges against them, and then you want to keep those charges on. This is your key out of jail. It is what is going to give you your freedom. So you keep things in place, and then you start working with the divorce coach, and you start building an exit plan before they get out of jail, and we'll get you out safely. Okay. If you are in if you're in Europe, if you're in England, that number for the police is 999. Call them, get them there. Okay. If you are dealing with violence on a regular basis, you want to call the domestic violence hotline. And the domestic violence hotline is 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. So we want to just wish you the very best. And again, if you are ready to start moving on, Chrystal is there. She can help you and help you move into a very healthy, happy intimacy. So we wish you the very best and send you blessings. Thank you.